Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to go into the last session, session 9. Thank you very much. If we would please settle down. Welcome back from coffee tea break. We're about rounding up, and this session 9 is going to focus on resilient futures, demographics, climate, and water nexus. The whole of yesterday and today, I believe if you were taking notes, you would have noted how many times demography or people were mentioned in all the interventions. And so today, it's my pleasure to moderate this session of distinguished panelists who will be discussing the interlinkages of demographic shifts with climate water nexus, migration, socioeconomic transformation, and then placing regional cooperation at the center, because we heard all of that yesterday as well as today, because that is the external context that we are dealing with. So if I may introduce my distinguished panel, I'll start from my immediate left. Ayolim Sagin-Baeva is the head of the Center for Demographic Analysis and Forecasting, Agency for Strategic Planning and Reform of the Republic of Kazakhstan. She is a demographer by training. She has held a number of key expert and leadership positions in state statistics bodies and applied research centers. Ayolim, thank you and welcome. Our next, immediately after her, is Fabio Losa. He's the Regional Demographic Resilience and Policy Advisor, UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, an economist by training, and an author of more than 200 scientific and technical publications in economics and sustainable development, including labor economics, inequality, migration, digitalization, regional economic integration, to mention a few. Fabio, you're welcome. And immediately after is Martin Krasny, the scientific director of the Center for Central Asia Research of the Corvinus University, Budapest, Hungary. He has had a long career in the Hungarian Foreign Service, including serving as Hungary's ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, as well as the chairman of the Permanent Council of the OSCE, and has also served in various United Nations entities and bodies, including one on strengthening institutional and legal aspects of the International Fund for Saving the RLC. Martin, you're welcome. And immediately after is Barbara Jasnus Paoletta, head of the Regional Representative Office of the International Water Management Institute for Central Asia and country representative for Uzbekistan. She's an international law expert with focus on water and environment. She has over 14 years experience working in Central Asia, and she's also an editor-in-chief of the Journal of the Central Asia Journal of Water Research, and a member of many associations. Barbara, you're welcome. And my colleague, Mr. Serhan Aktopak, Chief of Mission of the International Organization for Migration in Kazakhstan, as well as having a coordinating function for Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Serhan has over 18 years of experience in the field of migration management. And I am Chingwe Obonna. I'm the UNFPA representative in Kazakhstan and country director for Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan. And so we will get to it. As I highlighted, our session is to place people at the center. We've heard that referenced in one way or the other. So today we'll be framing demographic shifts that is evolving in the context that we live in, with implications for people, households, societies, and economies. We'll look at the intersectionality with climate change and how it is affecting those population patterns, and also discuss the migration flows that are also reshaping the demographic structures. As we know and as we've heard, water scarcity is intensifying, and it has impact on agriculture, on sustainable livelihoods, and the list goes on. So today, without that I can save a lot of time, I will go to our first speaker, Ayolim. We have heard a lot today, and as well as yesterday, on the prevailing, evolving context. Is Kazakhstan experiencing demographic shift? And if yes, what trends do we see? And what are the implications at the national and at the subnational level? You have 6 minutes, please.
Спасибо, госпожа модератор. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear moderator.
Бірінші кезекте қайырлы кеш, құрметті форумға қатысушылар. Я бы хотела отметить, что на сегодняшний день...
I'd like to highlight that as of today, the issue of demographic development and forecasting is one of the most key strategic focuses of our state's development. During his last address to the nation, head of state highlighted that we need to explore demographic processes, especially learn to forecast demographic development of Kazakhstan in the context of global changes. That is one of the significant steps in public management and state management, and our country should also implement these goals, and our Center on the Analysis of Forecasting of Strategic Demographic Development was established. I would like to highlight that Kazakhstan has a large understanding of demographic, large picture of understanding of demographic development. After the collapse of Soviet Union and independent states emerged, Kazakhstan started its own demographic development way, and Kazakhs were the ethnic minority, according to the latest data, dated 1989 during Soviet Union times, and only 40% of population were ethnic Kazakhs. As of today, Kazakhs are the ethnic majority, and the share of Kazakhs is 70%. As of today, the demographic picture of Kazakhstan embraces a mix of demographic processes and challenges that occur worldwide, and we have very clear regional peculiarities. I would like to highlight that as of today, Kazakhstan is one of the highly urbanistically developed regions, countries of Central Asia. As of today, the urban population is 63%. During baby boom, during pandemic, COVID-19, we've witnessed the decrease of childbirth worldwide, the decrease of marriages and increase in divorces. Kazakhstan, on the contrary, had a completely different picture during pandemic. We had a very high baby boom when the total coefficient was 3.3% for one women of reproductive age. After pandemic, we've reached the level of demographic development that was equal to pre-pandemic level, and today the total coefficient is 2.8 of childbirth per one woman. That is still a very high performance. As of today, the demographic profile of Kazakhstan shows high level of development of growth at the national level, but has certain regional peculiarities. We observe that northern regions, eastern regions of our country have certain decrease, whereas the western and southern regions show high growth, and the total growth of child goes up to 3 or 4 childbirths. The longevity has decreased, lifespan has decreased, but after pandemic, we've returned to the level that we used to have in 2018 and 2019, and even we observed certain growth. And today, the expected longevity of lifespan is 75 years for both male and female. However, there is certain gap in terms of gender, the gender gap. The expected lifespan of men is 71 years on average. For women, that's 79 on average. And this gap, 8-year gap, has been there for quite a long now. And this is one of the crucial aspects in demographic processes, analysis of demographic processes in Kazakhstan. In general, I'd like to highlight that in 2010, Kazakhstan was ranked as one of the highest in terms of the population leakage, but today we see the positive performance of migration in Kazakhstan. There is the increase of migration and decrease of out migration, and the positive saldo is more than 16,000 people. Despite being ranked ninth in the world in terms of territory, we're still underpopulated country, and the population density as of today is 7.4 person per 1 square kilometer. And I'd like to highlight the demographic picture of Kazakhstan may seem at first sight like positive one, but if we deep dive in processes, we can see that it is multilateral, and processes that have been there in the world during centuries is gained in Kazakhstan in some couple of years. And this is also due to the aging. We see that there's certain aging of population is taking place in Kazakhstan. Some 10 years ago, we didn't have this issue, the issue of aging, population aging in Kazakhstan. But today, this is also one of the essential issues to explore and discuss. I would also like to emphasize the climate change issue, because this may also lead to the fact that Kazakhstan may become a so-called oasis for other Central Asian states, and Kazakhstan will be able to attract not only labor resources, but maybe migration hub, because despite the rough climate change may result for Kazakhstan becoming a center for attracting people from other Central Asian states. Thank you.
Ayoleman, for doing it in record time. I'll come back to you subsequently, but thank you for highlighting and painting that picture of Kazakhstan's demographic profile at the national as well as at regional disparities. And so I'll go on to Fabio. Fabio, we've heard from Ayolim, Kazakhstan looks the picture of Kazakhstan, but we've also heard various schools of thought about Kazakhstan within Central Asia. And so I'd like to please ask you that, applying the perspectives and evidence from Central Asia, what prospects does the demographic shift present for Kazakhstan, and what investments are required? Are there any benefits to those investments, and are there any costs of inaction?
Thank you very much, dear Chinwe. Excellencies, distinguished guests and colleagues, I feel really privileged to represent the United Nations Population Fund in this important forum, and I would like really to thank the Institute for Strategic Studies and its tireless director, Mr. Zandu. Alongside climate change and technological progress, demographic change is a critical megatrend that is totally altering the socio-economic landscape worldwide and also in Central Asia. Demographic change is about changes in population size, distribution, and of course composition. And these changes are affecting phenomena like aging, rural depopulation, about migrations, and many, many others. And these, of course, are not just development outcomes, but they are also driver of development. From demographic changes, we have important impacts in terms of economic growth, the labor market. We have important effects on the sustainability of social system. And of course, also in terms of social cohesion, inequality. Demographic shifts interrelate with climate change and our capacity to protect the environment. But this relationship is bidirectional. Socioeconomic conditions, of course, with peace and stability, housing, access to health, determine mortality rate, determine the realization or non-realization of fertility aspiration and migration. Given this profound impact of demographic shifts, it is absolutely essential to ensure that demographic shifts are embedded into strategic planning, policy making, and investment. The objective is to strengthen demographic resilience, which is the capacity of a country to anticipate, to adapt to, and to harness demographic shifts for the current and the future generation. For many European countries that have completed their demographic transition and now exhibit very low fertility rate, sometimes compounded by important outmigration, resulting in stable or even shrinking population, demographic resilience means finding solution to aging, finding solution to brain drain, to labor supply shortages, to rural depopulation. But in contrast, for Kazakhstan and countries in Central Asia, the picture is totally different. You still have important high fertility rates, which means that you have a youthful population, and these for the coming decades. The working age population in Central Asia is projected to rise from 50 million to 71 million by 2050. This means more than 20 million Central Asian individuals ready to contribute to theirs and their country development process. Aging, as it was said, is accelerating, although it remains comparatively modest in a youthful population. In countries like Kazakhstan and the other Central Asian countries, the demographic situation is a unique opportunity for economic growth. The favorable age structure, with a large share of working age population compared to the dependent population, is a potential for an abundance of labor supply. And this creates an unprecedented, although time-bound, opportunity for GDP growth that the demographers call a demographic dividend. But one important issue is that the demographic dividend is not given, is not automatic. It depends on a precise and strategic policy framework. I would list three main conditions. The first one is that these 21 more million young women and men entering the productive age in Central Asia need to be prepared, educated, and skilled. Investment in human capital, education, and vocational training in line with the fourth industrial revolution and health are key. Here, looking at the human capital index calculated by the World Bank, this shows that a lot needs to be done. In fact, the index ranges from 0.6 for Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and the Kyrgyz Republic, and 0.5 for Tajikistan, which means that children born in Central Asia today will be only 50 to 60% as productive when they grow up as they could be if they enjoyed complete education and full health. The second condition is about economic model and system able to create employment and entrepreneurship opportunities. Economic diversification with a focus also on labor-intensive specialization of high value, and the creation of favorable business environment will be key to absorb these 21 million new women and men coming to their working age and boost economic growth. In this regard, in the region, there is a need to address the important skills mismatch between the workforce qualification and what is requested by the labor market. This, of course, looks back to the educational and vocational training system. Upskilling, reskilling, and long life learning, together with social protection, are also key in Kazakhstan because of the intention to transition to a more diversified, more digital, more green economy. But also because, according to the OECD, there is a high proportion of jobs with routine tasks that are at high risk of being automated through digitalization and AI. The third condition speaks about policies and mechanisms harnessing the demographic dividend that needs to be people-centered, inclusive, and based on human rights. Evidence shows clearly that combining economic principle with human rights, in particular gender equality and women's empowerment, leaving no one behind, is key for long-term well-being. If these conditions are not met, if investment are not adequately thought through, the demographic dividend can transform into a demographic time bomb. A large youth cohort facing unemployment, indecent or informal employment, or inactivity represent a profound economic loss and can foster frustration, thereby increasing the likelihood of social unrest and instability. At the United Nations Population Fund, we technically support countries in Central Asia and around the world in addressing the challenges and the opportunities of demographic shifts. We are working on data analysis and research to support policy formulation. And we are working also in creating demographic literacy and communication. Under the leadership of Chinwe Wona, the country office in Kazakhstan is working with the National Bureau of Statistics, for example, for producing the new population projection or for preparing for the next census. And we are also collaborating with the Institute of Strategic Studies, among others, to produce this very interesting discussion paper for this forum. We are also supporting Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan for their demographic resilience strategies. Let me conclude with saying that this is part of what UNFPA and the UN system do in more than 160 countries in the world, in development and humanitarian settings, to strengthen sustainable development, foster peace, prosperity, and preserve our planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabio. I think you used up the extra time that Ayolim didn't use, but thank you very much because that was important in framing what the prospects are and what investments and principles we must adhere to if we're going to achieve all the aspirations we heard being discussed yesterday and earlier today. In the interest of time, I'll move on to Martin. Martin, I know that there's been a lot of conversations around the climate water nexus, and it is a reality for Kazakhstan, right? And Central Asia. So from your expertise and your wealth of knowledge, what does the evidence tell us, and what are the implications for Kazakhstan and its neighbors? And what do they need to be mindful of to guide policy-oriented actions, being also mindful of the population? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chinwe. I also would like to thank the Institute of Strategic Studies for this invitation to this extremely topical and important meeting. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev reaffirmed Kazakhstan's ambition to address water security as a priority in the nation's development, and rightfully so. About 54–56% of water flows in Kazakhstan originate in neighboring countries. Climate change is hitting Central Asia especially hard. Average temperatures are rising twice as fast as the global average. And rapid melting of glaciers for the time being increase water flows, but after peak water is reached, is expected a big drop in water availability. And it's indeed a moment for bold actions guided by evidence and strategic foresight. Central Asian countries, inextricably linked by two large rivers, need to act at three levels: national, regional, and global. At the national level, indigenous and pragmatic solutions in support of groundbreaking reforms and policies need to be developed by and implemented by the academic community, the expert community, and policymakers. It is possible to import modern technologies, but innovative and effective policies for each country need to be elaborated by their own scientists and experts. Global concepts and principles applied in earlier years yielded mixed results. And I quote Professor Biswas, "The concept of integrated water resources management, the most fashionable policy framework of recent decades, is long on theory, but short on implementation potential." Effective water governance requires, among other things, sound macroeconomic policies. If a government embraces an economic theory that considers combating climate change and water scarcity a vital priority, then it's likely that to implement socially and environmentally responsible macroeconomic policies, which in turn provide powerful support to sectoral policies that mitigate climate change, effectively manage water, and protect biodiversity. Regional cooperation in Central Asia has faced numerous stumbling blocks in recent decades. Despite the fact that hydrological and geoeconomic conditions for transboundary water cooperation are excellent in Central Asia. In many river basins, upstream countries not only control water flows, but are in an economically dominant position. In Central Asia, the situation is just the opposite. The economies of downstream countries are much bigger than the economies of upstream countries. Just think that just the Kazakh economy is 50 times bigger than the economy of Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan. On the other hand, upstream countries have abundant freshwater resources and huge underdeveloped hydropower potential. The approximate equilibrium of relative bargaining power of upstream and downstream countries provides a solid basis for water diplomats to combine strengths and to work out cooperative solutions. But the engineering approach that has for decades dominated Central Asian water diplomacy, focusing mainly on physical water, cannot produce such outcomes. And Central Asia badly needs international assistance and cooperation to tackle water and climate-related challenges. The majority of countries support the transition to a more equal and just multipolar world order. While they might have different priorities, they have shared interest in effective climate action, sustainable water management, and preservation of biodiversity. They are keenly aware that when our house is burning, it's not very wise to quarrel about the furniture. To place climate change, water and biodiversity into the center of international cooperation, there is a need to more actively involve young people through the second track diplomacy, which very rarely spoken about here. In the series of, if you saw this, the Lord of the Rings, the film, humans and elves call upon their long dead ancestors to come to help defeat the evil orcs. We need to bring to the negotiating table future generations, our children, grandchildren, and their children, because they could help achieve a hegemony of norms, hegemony in the Gramscian sense, of environmentally and socially responsible policy making. Negative externalities caused by climate change, water scarcity, biodiversity loss are growing exponentially with each generation. I would like to make just 3 very short points on recommendations. Human capacity building is key. It's extremely important for making progress in all these 3 levels. My university, Corvinus University, works with Swedish, Chinese, Kazakh, and Uzbek universities on modeling the complex interrelationship between economic theory, macroeconomic policy, and sectoral policies. We endeavor to develop an artificial intelligence-assisted decision support tool that will facilitate policy making that takes into account not only short-term considerations like GDP growth, but the necessity to sustainably manage economic, human, social, and environmental capital. At the regional level, we have just launched in September this year a double degree with the Kazakh National University of Water Management Irrigation, which is in our hope will train a new generation of experts with a good understanding of the economic, social, environmental, and political aspects of water management and water diplomacy, who will be able to conduct comprehensive conflict analysis and develop out-of-the-water solutions based on a broad concept of benefit sharing. Kazakhstan and other Central Asian countries should actively support efforts to place water, climate change, biodiversity in the center of international cooperation. After 1991, they received plenty of advice how to manage their economies, mostly based on the principles of the Washington Consensus, a version of market fundamentalism that is not supported neither by modern economic science nor by practical experience. The water sector was the most vulnerable to these misguided policies. It was the wisdom of Central Asian water experts, the vodniki in Russia, who relied on thousands of years of experience that prevented even more damage to regional water management. My late friend, Professor Duhovny, put it this way: the need to construct irrigation systems that would allow the continuous expansion of agricultural land to meet the needs of a rapidly growing population predetermined collective initiatives organized by the state. The first state in Central Asia was established because of the need to establish a proper system of water resources management. Kazakhstan and its Central Asian partners have a unique capacity to combine thousands of years of wisdom accumulated by generations of water experts with brave, innovative, out-of-the-box thinking of a young generation to develop groundbreaking, still practical, pragmatic, doable solutions and share them with other people who want to strengthen global action on climate, water, and biodiversity. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you very much, Martin, and you highlight the urgency very well about the reality of the climate-water nexus that is faced by Kazakhstan and its neighbors that have shared bodies, shared water bodies. So that's very important. And you also echo human capital, investments in the human capital, and bringing the young people to the table. And I'm glad that in the audience today, this afternoon, we have quite a number of young people in the room. So that's bringing them, walking the talk of bringing them to the table, and also highlighting recommendations to make sure that we have sustainable management of water resources. Really very important, and we'll come back to that in terms of a way forward. And now I'll go on to Barbara. Barbara, from the legal perspective, we've heard the research, we've heard the evidence, we've heard the foresight, strategic foresight that Martin has shared around this management of water resources. From the legal perspective, because that's the hat that you wear, in particular international water law, what should Kazakhstan and its neighbors be prioritizing?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for invitation, first of all. And actually, I was thinking that the last session is a very good moment when you should not have a presentation, because the whole 2 days are so inspiring that if I had the presentation, I would need to change it immediately. So indeed, this very rich 2 days, I think, were not really outspokenly about water, but they were filled with water topic. Even the AI, when you think about the cooling of this, if you are thinking about nuclear energy, which we had the session on, you need water. When you think about trade, you need e-water in the crops or wherever. So I was feeling like everywhere is water, and I was thinking that it's extremely important that we indeed speak about this, this resource, which is really vital for our survival and our development at such a forum like this forum. So thank you for that. And I'm going to speak from the legal perspective, as it was mentioned, because our forum is devoted to, I much more feel about partnership than anything else, and within the internationalization. So international law should be a good guiding mechanism for us to speak about this a little bit more, as it's based on the commitment and trust of the governments and the countries generally. So I'm going to speak about water. I'm going to speak, as it was very nicely posted by the director of KISI, a mirror of trust. I never thought about this like this, but it's indeed like this, and it's also a condition for resilient future. So this is international law and water and how it plays in Central Asia. Actually, at the beginning, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact, I don't know if you know, that out of all the water which surrounds us everywhere, only 3% is fresh water. And out of the 3%, 30% is under the ground, almost 70% is in the glaciers, and only 1% of this 3% is something what we drink mainly from the rivers and from the lakes. So it's not too much, but it would be sufficient if we would use it really efficiently, wisely, and sustainably. So that's my first kind of technical message. Second message, actually I would like to share a picture, kind of a picture with you. Picture of a place which is abundant in fish, in food, in biodiversity, with the flourishing livelihoods. But this is the case until, let's say, 1960. And after this, from the overuse of water and because also of the climate change, the situation is fully changing. Water is remaining less than 10%. People are moving away. Here we speak about the democracy. Climate is changing because of this. Ecology is changing because of this health, and actually violence and terrorism is coming. And it's not the RLC. Though you are thinking about this probably immediately, since we are speaking about Central Asia, it's a Chad Lake. So that's where I want to draw attention. It's exactly the same picture here in Central Asia with the RLC, with the slight and importance difference. There is no violence and no terrorism. Though the disaster is in the same way. The second biggest lake in the world, fourth biggest lake in the world, now is basically gone. Less than 10% has remained. So this is a global problem. That's what I want to say, and Central Asia is facing one of the examples of this. This is related to demography, it's related to climate change, it's related to all of these issues which we have been talking about. So speaking about Central Asia very specifically, I would like to probably remind maybe us that that this region was really always putting a lot of attention and efforts to this. Not only because all of these developments, economic developments, which led to the disappearance of the RLC, not that what I mean, but rather after the countries have regained their independence, when they became independent in the early 90s, from the very beginning, right, couple of months after that, they have concluded a treaty which was called Treaty on Cooperation. I just even put cooperation in joint management, use, and protection. So joint, immediately cooperation, use, and protection. So everything was in place from the first day. It was the wise approach of the leaders of the countries really to start from this cooperation on this vital resource. And it remains until now. It was also a very important regional organization established, which is called Fund for Saving RLC, and its commission on the water coordination. So the institutions are in place, which Central Asia and Kazakhstan, playing now a leadership role in so-called executive committee of this IFAS, should be really proud of, because this is a very, very big achievement. It doesn't come without the shortages, of course, because there is a need for the reform and need for the improvement and for the further development, but still this is a backbone for the economical development, social development, and ecological stability, despite the ups and downs as they always can really happen. And I would like to say that now I see there is two-speed trends in Central Asia in the water management. We see a lot of bilateral cooperation among the countries. Even recently there was established a new coordination mechanism, a joint commission between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan on water management. You know, this is a very important moment because just in March they have concluded the treaty among to delimit finally their borders, and immediately after there was an agreement on water. So this is really a lot of how should I say, really that the countries want, that they understand how important it is, they want to regulate it. But at the same time, it's not so good because the multilateral processes are slower. We know that Kyrgyzstan has frozen its participation because the reforms are needed. But we know that this reform process is going on, so we are hopeful that Kyrgyzstan can come back. We still wait for the opportunity also how to engage with Afghanistan, which is, in terms of water, it's a sixth country of Central Asia, because this is where the Amudarya originates. And I think that for these purposes, international law, international water law is giving a framework. There are main international agreements which have been concluded in the 90s. They are global agreements about how to use water for different purposes, how to share water, how to protect water. So there are established international standards which can be adopted, if not the convention itself or in the gradual process, at least the principles like equitable use of water, like rational use, like not causing significant harm to each other, and at the bottom of everything to operationalize it is the cooperation. Those are the main principles of law. And I would like to conclude just saying that international law, I think, in our topic today, international water law, is a condition, is a basis, and is a framework for cooperation. It's a condition, basis, framework for stability, peace, and development. There is a lot of law already existing in this region to regulate transboundary cooperation also for Kazakhstan, but it needs improved implementation. We spoke about this before. That is not only about law, but it's also about its implementation based on the political will. So I think that we have witnessed here a lot of really real commitment to multivectoral policy, but also to multivectoral cooperation, and I think that's going to be a basis for ensuring that law is implemented well and further developed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for that 101 on international water law. Thank you. And for highlighting not just the criticality of the principles of equitable and rational use, but also the costs of inaction if we don't do that, and also linking it back to stability, to peace, and putting people at the center, because you talked about doing no significant harm whilst using water, and how we manage it is very important. So thank you again for those reflections. And now we'll go to our fifth speaker for now, Serhan. Serhan, we've heard our colleagues mention migration, not once, not twice, and we know that it remains a mega trend of the 21st century. And with increased people on the move or persons in migrant situations within and across countries, what is driving migration flows for Kazakhstan and Central Asia? What are the implications, and what must we do?
Thank you very much. They used to say that the worst position to be is the last person between the presentation and lunch. I think my situation is not any better than that, and I'm the last person, I think, to speak. But thank you very much, Fabio. You set a very good precedent by having taken additional 3 minutes. I will try to, however, keep as short as possible. I want to thank the Institute for Strategic Studies, and especially Kırmızı Jandos Mirza for giving the opportunity to appear alongside the distinguished speakers, together with my dear colleague Chinwe. And I'll try to walk you through a little bit about this migratory processes. Indeed, it is the megatrend of the 21st century. And if it is so, basically, we also see that Central Asia, and especially Kazakhstan, maintaining a central position in the flows, owing to its geographical location and, of course, social and economic progress the country has been making over the years, increasingly its vast resources, and, of course, the stability, which is very important. I cannot not mention that one of the competitive advantages that Kazakhstan has is its visionary leadership. During the Astana International Forum, His Excellency Mr. President, Mr. Tokayev has mentioned to our Director General, Madam Amy Pope, during the bilateral, that his government's policy, Kazakhstan's policy, is that Migration has a big potential as a driver, contributor to sustainable development for as long as it's managed well, it's orderly, and of course it's humane. When there is a lot of negative connotation around migration, hearing this is basically music to ears. And therefore, I want to congratulate Kazakhstan again for such visionary leadership. Well, indeed, we see a very high level of flows surrounding Kazakhstan. It's always been a country of destination for migrant workers, but then there are a lot of categories of individuals traveling to Kazakhstan and also traveling from Kazakhstan. But when we look at the numbers for the purposes of our discussion today, we see that the inflow and outflow of international migrants, be it for leisure, be it for work, be it for family visits, short-term, long-term, the numbers are actually quite high, but we see generally a positive trend, which is, as you can see, is about 150,000 higher than the outflow of international migrants. The major countries of arrival and departure vis-à-vis citizenship are those immediately in the neighboring region, Russian Federation in the north, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan in the south, and of course China. When we look at the movement of Kazakh nationals, there is an out-migration and also in-migration. But when we particularly look at the numbers concerning people taking up residences in other countries, that's particularly very little. These are the official statistics, as you can see, but I will talk a little bit more on the results of the assessments and surveys that IOM has made recently as part of our 6th round of mobility baseline assessments and surveys, which were officially shared with public yesterday. So it's pretty much of a new information I will be able to share with you. Accordingly, indeed confirming the past and anticipated prospects and figures, Kazakhstan is a major country of destination for migrant workers, especially originating from the Central Asian countries. According to the latest survey that was conducted in June-July 2025, which I said has been announced yesterday, there are over 550,000 migrant workers taking up jobs in various sectors at any given time currently in Kazakhstan, which is 21,000 higher than the 5th round of the assessment that was conducted in January 2025. So you basically see just under 5% increase in just under 6 months. The primary countries of origin of migrant workers are Uzbeks, making 86%, and then citizens of Russian Federation, 7%, citizens of Tajikistan, 2.5%, Kyrgyzstan make 2%, citizens of People's Republic of China, 0.6%, and all the rest of the world, they constitute only 2.5%. In addition to these assessments, we also conduct international migrant surveys in which we have interviewed 2,115 individuals who basically noted as their primary reason of travel to Kazakhstan to take up jobs is because of economic reasons, obviously, and also because of the beneficial working conditions offered by the environment in Kazakhstan. And of course, its proximity. It's near, people travel there. There is a very high level of circularity we see. People travel back and forth constantly. 61% of the persons, once they are in, they go back to their countries for a visit in under 6 months. 22% of the respondents are holding bachelor's or higher degree of education, and 49% hold high school degrees, which is pretty high. Majority of the people, I would say 38% of the migrant workers, they are very happy with their conditions. They basically can cover their needs and they can also save. 31% of the respondents, they can cover needs although they cannot save. But paradoxically, as with everything else, there is a disparity in relation to income levels when we compare males and females. For example, males still earn 17% higher than the females when compared to their pre-migration conditions. When, for example, a couple, let's say, travel from a neighboring country, come to Kazakhstan, they both work, men earns 17% higher than the woman. However, there's an interesting thing. If they had stayed in their countries, this disparity would have been higher. Actually, it would be 41% more. Males earned 41% more than the females in pre-migration period. So basically, this is a very interesting point because it shows that migration also helps reduce this disparity. There is, however, still this challenge and difference between males and females. There is also another thing, and I will wrap up in 1 minute, dear Chinwe. Thank you very much for your patience. But I think this is very important. What our studies also show is that there is a cost of this increased salary when it comes to both males and females, because the white-collar background people, they often experience a downward occupational mobility during the process, which means they take up jobs that fall under the blue collar, although this comes at the benefit of receiving higher salaries. So basically, they get higher salary, but unfortunately, they take less higher status positions in the country of destination. This is not only specific for Kazakhstan, but this is what it is, and this basically goes all over the place. So basically, this phenomenon highlights the complexity of migrant integration, where economic gains coexist with professional de-skilling and potential social status loss, unfortunately. It also underscores the role of global labor market inequalities in shaping migration outcomes. I will very briefly show you about the internal migration, which is increasing in Kazakhstan compared to 2024 whole year. In the first 6 months of 2025 only, there has been an increase of 30%, up from 67,000 to 98,000. Now, when we look at the reasons why these people are internally changing their residences, at the top comes economic reasons, resettlement programs, education, but also to improve their living conditions, and that also has about 5 to 20% share of environmental and climate change effects. In conclusion, what is next for Kazakhstan? In one sentence, I would be able to say that given the increasing dynamics that offer benefits to Kazakhstan and its neighbors in Central Asia, we believe that there is a great opportunity to tap the potential of migration through regular pathways, which would continue generating employment and also higher remittances, which is critical and also one of the producers of regional stability, given the excellent relationship that Kazakhstan enjoys with its neighbors. And thank you very much for your patience. Over to you back again, Chinwe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serhan, for that and for the time. I was smiling. Okay, so and thank you for highlighting not just the external migration, but internal migration, because again, we looked at when Ayolim spoke, she spoke about the demographic disparities or differences in the country. when you showed that map, I was looking out because she categorized what's happening in the north, what's happening. She talked about population density, and Fabio, when he was speaking, talked about dependency ratios, onset of aging. When Martin and Barbara spoke as well, the highlight issues of social stability, of linked it to economic prospects as well as equality. So you kind of begin to draw a map that there is an interconnection, a correlation between demographic shifts and the migration patterns that we're seeing, the dimensions and the dynamics of the shared water bodies and the management of them, again, circling back to socioeconomic prospects that Kazakhstan wants to advance. So we will look to the audience to take one or two questions, and before I come back to give my panelists a final round for their final take. I see a hand there, please. If you introduce yourself and say who your question is directed to, or if it's everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I thank very much participants of this session for your speech information. I'd like to ask Ms. Ayawulum. I would like to clarify. My question is as follows. Regarding the second demographic shift in the Republic of Kazakhstan, there is a stance on behalf of the researchers that demographic shift in Kazakhstan at the moment is on pause. What is your stance and what is the stance of your center? What is the development stage of the demographic shift in Kazakhstan? And are there any opportunities for sustainable development within our country? Thank you. Thank you for your question. First of all, demographic shift cannot be on pause because processes of population production are constant ones. The world demographic professionals have two questions. First, whether the second demographic shift exists as such, or is this the continuation of the first demographic shift, and is this the continuation of demographic revolution? Kazakhstan is unique in terms of the fact that in Kazakhstan, the demographic shift process is very much mixed. What do I mean? In European states, in the USA, in the OECD states, they had the first demographic shift transition, and then they had the second demographic transition. In Kazakhstan, we have not yet finalized the first demographic transition because the birth rate is still high and the death rate is gradually decreasing. Therefore, we, the Kazakhstani demography professionals, we believe that we are between the phase 3 and phase 4 of demographic transition. We are gradually heading towards the ending, but then again, there are certain regional peculiarities. If we take northern regions, eastern regions, some central Kazakhstan regions, they have finalized the first demographic transition process. The birth rate is low, the death rate is also gradually decreasing, but the second demographic transition is the process when we see social consequences of population reproduction. That is the increase in urbanization, the women engagement in the economy, etc. And due to this, we, as of today, can claim that Kazakhstan is still under the first demographic transition with certain elements of the second demographic transition. So we observe the women engagement in the economy of country increasing, urbanization, urban development is on very high level. So the opinion that Kazakhstan is on pause, I would not share this opinion. I would not agree with this opinion because in general, the process of demographic transition is a dynamic one always until it finalizes all its phases. Thank you.
Did you want to add anything from your experience? Lovely. Looking for another? Is any other hand? Okay. Is that a hand? So I will circle back to my panel, and then I'll keep looking out to the audience. So I'd like to give each of you 2 minutes as we round up to basically answer one question. So like a lightning round, one question. What would be one recommendation, knowing that we're discussing the correlation between demographics, migration, climate, water nexus, and Kazakhstan has its vision for resilient futures that is inclusive, that is equitable. What would be one recommendation that you would give to the Kazakhstan Institute for Strategic Studies that they need to take forward? I will start from you, Sirhan, since you were the last speaker.
Thank you for throwing the hot potato to me first. I will never forget this. All right, well, basically, I would say that remain committed, believing in migration and its potential. And I think you have all the reason, all the ingredients with all the infrastructure, political commitment, and basically the massive potential. And immediate, I think, opportunity, and everything starts with law, right? I basically am very much a believer in strong foundations. Countries need, first of all, the need to understand that they need to develop effective, implementable, realistic policies, strategies, complemented by legal framework, and actionable initiatives. Because you may have everything perfect on paper, but if you don't transfer them into implementation, then you will not be able to move forward. And Kazakhstan has a great opportunity because the country is now working on its new migration policy. And as IOM and the UN country team, we are contributing to their efforts. And remembering that foreign direct investment makes remittances make a greater contribution to economies than the foreign direct investment. And given the global financial constraints, the geopolitics surrounding the matter, I think Kazakhstan and its partners are in a unique position to be able to leverage their potential and put it into use for the human and social economic development for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and for finding a way to making it more than one recommendation. Thank you, and I'll go to Barbara. Barbara, what would be one recommendation that you'll give to the Institute to take forward, either within that or within other bodies of Kazakhstan?
Thank you. I think that one would be to Kazakhstan generally to continue developing and strengthening the regional transboundary cooperation. Kazakhstan is already putting a lots of efforts on this. I think continuing in strengthening, engaging even more partners like Afghanistan is very important. And there is a principle to recognize and to keep in front is the sovereignty of countries over the natural resources. Countries are obviously downstream and upstream. Kazakhstan is a downstream country, which has its very specific, puts it in the position of this cooperation. But sovereignty is the basis for the cooperation and then for the peaceful settlement of disputes. And secondly, second element of this, pushing this cooperation forward would be advancing the legal framework. Legal framework is there, as I mentioned, since early 90s, which is something to be really praised, but at the same time, it's over the time, it's more than 30 years, it really requires more investment and more development according to the international legal principles like equitability, rational use, no significant harm, and all of this. And last but not least, strengthening the institutions. Kazakhstan now has the chairmanship of the ECIFAS Executive Committee. There is going to be next year the heads of states summit here, concluding the presidency of 3 years. This is a great opportunity to really enhance the cooperation and ensure that IFAS will become as strong as it was by the end of the 90s. So just do what you do, but even more structured in terms of institutions and of the legal framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And I'll come to you, Martin. What is that recommendation for the Institute?
Thank you very much. Well, 2 years ago in September 2023, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev addressed the two chambers of the parliament and says, improving the management of water resources for a country is an issue of national security. I think it would be very important that this point is made in the regional context, in Central Asian context. So all 5 countries or 6 countries, including Afghanistan, realize that in the present extremely complex international situation, economically, security-wise, it's very important that they continue the progress on cooperative management of water resources, improving cooperation, because it's the issue of national security, not only for Kazakhstan, but the whole region.
Thank you very much, Martin. Now go to Fabio.
Thank you very much. This is not a recommendation for the Institute, because the Institute is already walking this pathway, but it's just to reiterate this point. I think as in climate resilience, in water resilience, also for demographic resilience, there is no silver bullet solution. There is the need of an integrated set of coherent policies that are embedded at the highest level of the national development vision and planning. And when we speak about integrated policies, we're also speaking about coordination, about a stakeholders' involvement into the process. So this is really what we need everywhere in order to tackle this very complex problem as it is with demographic resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabio. And Ayuli?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. In general, I wouldn't say that this is a recommendation to the Institute, but in general, for the state, I think it is important to strengthen the cross-agency coordination in terms of exploring demographic challenges and demographic situation. And we should not separate the question of demographic issues, including that of water resources related issues, because both the migration issues, water resources issues, and demographic development issues are all represent main pillars of national security. Therefore, I would want us, when we talk about demographic resilience, when we talk about water resilience, when we talk about migrational resilience and security, I would want us to talk about one and the same direction that is the basis for the sustainable development of a country. The initiatives that have been voiced during these 2 days at this forum and that have been raised during this forum are extremely important. And we as the academia, the expert community, state representatives have a shared vision on issues of demographic development, demographic policy is a great achievement, important achievement, because the year 2025 has become a certain symbol of the fact that demographic science, demographic policy have become one of the mainstreams of state policy. Thank you.
Have it. We have concluded this panel, but I think that the panelists have found one way to anchor some very critical thoughts. You know, I was saying to someone earlier, the beauty about think tanks is there's no right or wrong. Everybody brings thought leadership to the table, backed by evidence from their lens and from their area of expertise. What's important is to keep the dialogue going. And we want to thank again the Kazakhstan Institute for Strategic Studies for bringing brilliant minds together. So the question is now, what next? How are we going to take all the various thought leadership perspectives and expertise forward? And if you allow me to pick up the words that I've been hearing all through since yesterday, there's about security, so social stability, there's inclusion, there's equity, there's prosperity, there's peaceful coexistence, there's resilient futures, there's socioeconomic prospects that we've heard anchored again and again today. There's coordination, internal coordination, and also regional and international cooperation. And most of all, it's about putting people at the center. And we heard yesterday about people could be geopolitical assets. So how do we make sure that we leverage the human capital that we have, and be they youthful, be they female, be they male, be they young or old? How can we make sure that we have the right skills and the right connections to then be able to leverage it? We also heard yesterday about the power of leverage. And today we've heard about how you can leverage demographic prospects, especially when you apply strategic foresight to it. So I'd like to thank the panelists for their time and also for preparing to bring forward your thoughts. And please, if you could give a round of applause to the panelists as I invite them to please take their seats. Thank you very much. And it's now my honor to invite the director for the Kazakhstan Institute for Strategic Studies, Mr. Jandos Shaimadanov. Jandos, don't kill me, to the stage to deliver the closing remarks. Thank you again.
Can you turn? Oh, okay. Thank you, Chinve. Thank you, the panelists of this final session. And I can believe that we are approaching the end of the forum. Within these 2 days, we had 9 brilliant sessions. And I'm very grateful to all the moderators, to the panelists, for your ideas. And there were many ideas. Some of you may have missed these sessions. Let me explain the logic, how we designed the structure of this forum. We had 2 days. The first day was giving you the external context of what's going on in terms of the geopolitical issues, of what's going on in the Central Asia, covering the Afghanistan and many other aspects, also the nuclear disarmament. And during the second day, we gave you the taste of real economics, social context, and I hope that we achieved our goal, giving you this context, giving you the ideas. And during my opening speech, I mentioned that the most challenging part is turning these ideas into action. This is now our part of our institute. Given all these recommendations and ideas that you gave us, make them actionable, make them possible, and I hope that given your support, given support of our think tanks in Kazakhstan, we may finally achieve these results. I already see some results. For example, within the final session, we discussed the demography, the migration within the context of water issues and climate change. That was discussed many, many times before, but now I see that this actually was given the more applied way. There was a center which was recently created in the Agency for Strategic Planning and Reforms. There is initiatives on, there is a specific concept for migration which has been already developed by the government. So we are already on this way, on the track of making these recommendations into execution. So if you missed some of these sessions, let me briefly remind you what we discussed. Our team prepared the short, maybe not so short summary, and I'll briefly give you what we discussed within the last 2 days. The first session of the forum was dedicated to the topic of multilateralism at a crossroads. Panel speakers discussed the current state of international institutions and focused on finding new formats for cooperation in the face of growing fragmentation of international community. In their view, polarization represents not only a challenge, but also an opportunity for the UN and other multilateral institutions to reconsider their purpose and redefine their roles within the global community. It was noted that the UN Charter required adaptation to the realities of the 21st century. A special role in the effective reform of the international multilateral system belongs to the middle powers such as Kazakhstan. They can act as mediators, offering dialogue and cooperative platforms where the ambitions and interests of global players collide. During the second session, titled The End of Unipolarity, panelists explored how the unipolarity is receding into the past and the center of gravity of global politics is diffusing and shifting. These challenges affect not only the distribution of power, but also the very architecture of international relations, trade rules, technological standards, diplomatic formats, and security mechanisms. Our immediate practical task is to translate the recognition of these shifts into institutional and normative frameworks to help develop more inclusive and resilient international partnerships. This means strengthening dialogue and trust among states, investing in regional formats, and creating mechanisms for transparent interaction to make multipolarity functional rather than chaotic. The third session was devoted to the theme, the nuclear challenge, non-proliferation, and disarmament in an era of strategic rivalry. Speakers acknowledged that traditional arms control and non-proliferation mechanisms designed for a bipolar world are struggling to cope with the current diversity of nuclear players and competing strategic powers. Nevertheless, the Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, with these pillars, disarmament, peaceful nuclear power, and non-proliferation, remains the cornerstone of the regime. In the era of strategic rivalry, all responsible states should focus on preserving multilateral arms control, strengthening nuclear safeguards, and advancing disarmament diplomacy to reduce the threat of use of nuclear weapons that should remain unacceptable under any circumstances. Speakers emphasized Kazakhstan's special role in and outstanding contribution to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Our fourth session was held at the third Central Asian Forum on Security and Cooperation. Speakers analyzed the challenges that the transformation of the international security system poses for stability and development of our region, as well as prospects for regional cooperation. It was noted that Central Asia possesses unique experience and peaceful coexistence, balancing interests and finding compromises. This experience could become a valuable contribution of the region to rethinking the principles of global governance and security. Panelists agreed that Central Asian nations must unite their potentials to tackle shared regional challenges and effectively use available resources in trade, economic, industrial, investment, energy, transport, and logistics cooperation. They also emphasized the importance of research into the region's socio-cultural features for developing joint solutions to key regional challenges. The fifth session of the forum was dedicated to the development of pragmatic cooperation between Central Asia and Afghanistan. Session participants noted the strengthening of mutual cooperation in recent years, marked by trade agreements between the regional countries and Afghanistan. They emphasized the prioritization of trade, economic, and transport cooperation with Afghanistan, and the importance of creating new transport routes linking Central Asia and Afghanistan with South Asia, Pakistan, and India. It was emphasized that developing a comprehensive and coordinated approach by Central Asian states on the Afghan track is necessary to find joint solutions and establish sustainable and practical cooperation with Afghanistan, including through promoting the expert dialogue. It is equally important to involve Afghanistan in the regional dialogue on climate and water issues. The Afghan side emphasized Afghanistan's willingness to strengthen trade and economic ties with its Central Asian neighbors and engage in water-related negotiations. Session 6 focused on the transformation of investment strategies in a fragmented global economy. Participants noted that sanctions regimes, trade restrictions, and disruptions in supply chains are fundamentally reshaping capital flows, increasing investor interest in countries that demonstrate political stability and institutional resilience. During the session, special attention was given to Central Asia, a region gradually emerging as a bridge between divided geopolitical centers. Using Kazakhstan as an example, the speakers examined reforms aimed at strengthening investor confidence, simplifying the business climate, and advancing the digital transformation of the economy. On the seventh session, we examined the new geography of connectivity in the context of shifting global power dynamics and emerging patterns of disorganized multipolarity. Speakers emphasized the strategic importance of infrastructure diplomacy and trans-regional connectivity as instruments for sustainable growth and geopolitical balance. The discussion highlighted the role of middle powers, particularly Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, in advancing cooperative models that bridge competing global centers through initiatives like the Middle Corridor. Participants also underlined the transformation of Eurasia into a key axis of geo-economic integration, driven by investments in transport, energy, and digital infrastructure. The session pointed to the Trans-Caspian route as a symbol of resilience and diversification amid changing trade flows and sanctions. Ultimately, the dialogue called for a shift toward progressive capitalism based on collaboration, innovation, and equitable distribution of benefits across interconnected regions. Session 8, titled AI Without Borders, focused on discussing the ethical, legal, and cultural challenges associated with the development of artificial intelligence. Participants noted that AI technologies are evolving much faster than regulatory mechanisms. As a result, a governance vacuum and a lack of consensus in AI ethics have emerged, as different regions are forming their own regulatory models. AI should be created not for the sake of technology itself, but for the benefit of humanity and society. It is essential to seek a balance between AI ethics and traditional ethics, ensuring that technological progress aligns with human values and moral responsibility. For Kazakhstan and the Central Asian countries, it is crucial to localize AI and develop models that reflect the linguistic and cultural diversity of the region, as global models pose risks of digital dependency and loss of data sovereignty. Kazakhstan has already taken steps in this direction. The session also highlighted the importance of building a system for training specialists in responsible AI and strengthening cooperation between science, government, and business to integrate AI into the economy, education, industry, and public administration. You've already heard the session 9, but let me again remind you. Session 9 of the forum explored how demographic shifts intersect with the climate-water nexus to shape the socio-economic future of Kazakhstan and Central Asia. The region is likely to face severe water shortages, rising environmental pressures, and the growing reality of climate-induced migration. In this context, as participants highlighted, there is a growing need to strengthen demographic resilience. This means enhancing the country's ability to anticipate, adapt to, and benefit from demographic changes while safeguarding people's rights and choices. The experience of other countries shows that when demographic policies are closely linked with economic growth, poverty reduction, improved health and education, and social development, societies can transform demographic change into a powerful driver of sustainable progress. On top of that, strong regional and international cooperation on water and climate is essential. This is indeed a moment for bold actions guided by evidence and strategic foresight. We need to be ready to initiate vulnerability assessments, implement adaptive and climate-resilient policies, and integrate the climate agenda into spatial development planning. Well, while reading this summary, I can't believe that we managed to discuss all of these questions within just 2 days. And I'm happy that we had a privilege to have such a very honored guests and distinguished panelists, moderators here on Astana Think Tank Forum. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for sharing this intellectual journey with us, and I hope again that these recommendations, these policies will turn into action. We will do our best to make this possible. And given this opportunity, I would like also to thank the team which prepared and made possible this forum. The team of Kazakhstan Institute of Strategic Studies, the presidents. Thank you. We did it in partnership with the President's Administration, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Kazakhstan Congress, Secretariat of Astana International Forum, and of course our sponsors. And once again, I would like to thank our partners who prepared these joint reports with us. During this final session, we discussed, we already had a discussion paper, which we prepared with UNFPA, IOM, and other institutions. Such reports we prepared on green hydrogen, Alatau CET, and other topics, which are also important, and we believe that through such a joint collaboration, we remove borders between our countries, between the think tanks and experts. So within these discussions, we are ready to continue this work. And I'm very grateful for those of you who already initiated such joint projects for the next year. Within these 2 days, we've already discussed with the experts what we can do next. We are open for these projects, and we look forward to see you again next year. Talking about the next year, I can tell you right now that there will be a regional ecological summit in April, which the government is preparing, and I hope to see you there. So thank you once again for coming, for being with us. It's a big privilege for us to host Astana Think Tank Forum and to see all of you on our venue. Thank you. And we have an opportunity to have a collective photo. So please come here to this platform and we can take a collective photo.